Hey, hello, it's time for another development update about the Zelda-like prototype in Construct 3. And this is part number 4. It's getting there. This is the fourth part. Just a few more and the game is done. That is how it's work. That is how it works. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the progress that I've been making in the last couple of days or a week. It's a prototype that I've been working on for the last 7 to 8 weeks, maybe. And my goal or the challenge is to actually make a Zelda-like prototype in Construct 3, hence the title. But I'm really sticking to like the old traditional Zelda, like on the NES. Of course, it's gonna head in a different direction. It's not gonna be a one-to-one copy of that. It's gonna be its own thing later on. But I'm using the Zelda game as kind of like a blueprint, or just look at it like I kind of want to make something that feels similar, but different enough. But for what we're making right now, I'm just focusing on, okay, Zelda has this, Zelda has that, and how do I actually build that in Construct 3? So I'm going to show the progress a little bit and, go over it, go over the event sheets and show what I've changed. And although it might not appear, again, that not a ton has changed, a lot has changed for the better, as far as I know. We will start talking about that in a couple minutes. I'm gonna set a timer. I'm gonna do my best. I got a little alarm for 30 minutes because after 30 minutes I'm done and I want to sit on the couch and eat my meal. But before we start, I actually want to talk a little bit about something else, and that is a live stream that is coming up. So if you're watching this video today, that's the 30th of April, 30 April on 2024. Yes. On Friday, the 3rd of May. How does this keep happening? I have trouble like saying a 3rd or 30. And every time when I have to mention a number, it's gonna be either of those. Anyway, on next Friday at 6:30 p.m. CEST. I think that's the correct time zone. So that's for the Dutch people, 6:30. We are planning on doing a live stream about Horizon Danger, and that's the main game that I'm working on in my spare time. When I'm not working on this project in my spare time, but it's a project that I've been working on for 10 years, like here and there. It's a local multiplayer action game. It's rather fast-paced. It has like a cosmic horror setting. The short description is it's a more hectic Bomberman. Bomberman, and somewhat similar to something like Towerfall, or is it called Towerfall? Yeah, it's not Titanfall, it's Towerfall. But you do play with robots, so it's kind of also Titanfall, but also Samurai Gun. If you know those games, it's somewhat similar. So we're gonna play that next Friday, and if you're not able to watch that live stream, I will try my best to record some footage and make some highlights so you can actually see what I've been working on as well. Besides this project, whatever it is. So with that said, let's just begin. Let's just begin also with showing the game itself. It was already running. There you go. So again, yes, it still looks the same. It's getting there. I don't want to commit to a visual style, but although I'm leaning towards a certain type of game that I want to make, or a certain visual style and team. But outweighing the pros and cons with each decision. And we'll see. It's not important right now. What is important though is, yes, yes, I'm going to talk about the interactions with objects. And that system has grown a little bit. So let's just show it first. Like, yeah, I do think you can see my mouse. Like, this is the player. Hi, this is me. This is an enemy. This is an item. And there's a big change. There are actually 2 items over there. Oh my god. With how I set it up previously. Apologies, I got a hair in my mouth. Previously, like how I set it up, only one object could, you know, take spot or be on a location, and I have set it up that there could actually be 2, and it was possible to have like multiple items in a tile. You know, for example, X, you know, the 8 and 5. But it was kind of difficult to interact with it. There were some limitations, and I might show a little bit more about that. So those are 2 items. This is a slidey block. This is a switch, something that we can turn on and off. And this is actually a pressure plate. And yes, I do think the pressure plate is working. But here's the big reveal. Something actually has changed. There's another pressure plate. And a slidey block in screen number 4. So what is actually happening is that there's a staircase here that we have seen before. And if I press on interact, nothing is happening. And I could quickly show you the switch right now is set up to unlock the staircase. So if I press interact, I should actually transfer to a new place. And also, you might notice something else. You don't pick up the items if you walk over them. It's actually something that you have to interact with as well. Oh my god, that's a big change. So if I interact with it, I pick up the item. So that's already like a big change when you compare to the traditional Zelda game, because you walk over the items and you pick the rupees up. And maybe in a store, only in a shop, you have to pick them up, sort of, or you have to interact with them. Is it actually true, or do you just have enough rupees and walk over it? I can't remember. But yeah, the biggest change is actually like an item. You could either ignore it or pick it up. So let's go down here, and then we go here, and you know, the entrance is still you know, not visible, and we can interact with it. And now we go to a new screen. The item is actually gone. Oh my god, that was something that was already in there, but it is actually working in a better way. It was working, but now it's really working. The biggest change is, or what I want to showcase is that I do have like 2 pressure plates. And one of the biggest issues was in the previous prototype, you know, I already explained like the items. 2 items couldn't be on the same tile, because when I was interacting with something, I would check a JSON file and check that location, like is something there that I can interact with. And I made it so that it could either be interacted with maybe the player, the enemy, or with another object. And the line of thought was like, okay, you do have a pressure plate, and we do have to build something like layers. So we have a pressure plate, and once a block is on there, you know, that block is actually an object. And is it possible to interact with the pressure plate with an object? Like, hands off for the player, we don't care. It's the block is saying like, hey, I'm here, can I interact with you? That was working to some extent, but there were like many limitations. And right now it actually works the same, but the interactions have, or how I store the data is different. But let's just show it. Here's the slidey block. It's on there right now. Nothing happens because we do have a second pressure plate. So let's slide it on here, and please work. there we go. We actually see the staircase. So now you might wonder, like, okay, it's kind of odd that you can interact with the staircase while it is hidden. And while it is hidden, you can still interact with it. Yes, I agree. That is kind of odd. This is just a testing, uh, a testing environment. Like, okay, what does it actually take to build this? And I could set it up that you can't interact with the door, even if it's that you can't interact with an object if it's hidden. It's just something that I have not set up yet, but it's probably easy to do. So let's just show it. So in the other screen that we were just in, we placed the sliding block on the pressure plate, and we need 2 of them to actually make that work. And I'm just gonna hide this for a little bit, because I've shown this JSON file before. Now the game is actually in the way on my screen. So the entrance is, has a trigger thingy, and the hidden trigger is, in an array with the pressure plate. This one, this world, this screen, and this ID. So it's the first one that is actually on here. So I could have multiple ones, but it's only listening to the first one. And the other pressure plate is actually the one that's located in this world, but in a different screen, and it's 0. So that's sort of like a ID, a trigger ID that an object has. That's just how it works. And it starts as hidden, and once these are enabled, this is gonna flip. It's gonna flip out, man. So that is actually happening. So if we push that pressure plate away, nothing is happening, or something is happening. It's the staircase is gone again, and if I press it on, it's there again. But there's another big change. I can actually stand on a pressure plate and leave, and the staircase is still there. So that's also something that I am able to set up. Is that some objects? What I want to do is that if an object is interactable with another object, or if an object can interact with an object, that's still being used, but I kind of want to lean away from that. It's just location based, and so for the player, there's a location check. Like, okay, is there something that I can interact with, and is this interactable by location? And that is how this is actually working. And this took some time. It was kind of odd, like how long it took, but everything fell into place, and here we are. It is actually working, and I'm very glad with that. So nothing else has changed. I am actually gonna show this. So I'm gonna press interact, and I do have a lamp, and here's another item. So I'm gonna press again and pick it up. Now I am a little bit curious if I can show the debug, because this is I'm not gonna go into the nitty-gritty, but I just want to show a little bit like how it actually works, and how the game knows how to interact with something. And how it is set up right now is going to be important probably later on. So I do have an array, and that says player interactables, and I'm looking at the switch. So right now in the interactables, there's only one object that I can interact with. It's objects.switch.0. So that is another ID for that object. It's different than the trigger ID, because with the interactions, I don't care about all the other places. I only care about this screen right now, because I can only interact with the objects that are here on the screen. So if I move away, you can actually see, okay, something has changed, and I can't interact with anything. If I go here to the slidey block, there's another interactable. And if I press J, something happens, and I interact with that object, and a a function is called based on the type of object that is there. But if I go here, I can't interact with the pressure plate. Maybe I could do that. Like, okay, you can actually press on it, but that's just gonna make it kind of tricky. So in my mind, if I interact with the pressure plate, I just see like the character like pressing it down with the finger or with their feet, and then actually not doing anything. Am I making sense? No, I'm just trying to visualize. Okay, so I'm standing next to it and I interact with it. Like, how would I interact with the pressure plate? The only way to interact with it is by standing on top of it. So the other thing, there are two items. So that is why we actually see the two items over here with the data. That, the first one is actually objects item 0, and then the second one is items 1. It's based on just how it's layered out in the interaction JSON file. And the nice thing about this is, why is it built like this? I'm just going to show if I press J, I pick up the first item, and then that actually goes away. So if I press interact right now, I am interacting with this object. I set it up like this because at some point I do want, or I think I want, a way to switch interactions. Have like a UI displayed, like, okay, you can pick up this item, or there's something else that you can interact with. So switch to that and show me what I can interact with as well. Like, okay, there's an item, but there's a switch as well. Like, am I gonna pick up the item or turn on the switch? There's never gonna be a case where an item is gonna overlap with a switch in this game because it's like 2D, it's top down, so that is probably not gonna happen. But it's nice to have. Like, there could be a case where two items are overlapping. Maybe there's a item drop from an enemy on that location, and that's the way. There were other ideas about how to tackle that, but this is how it works, and it didn't take that much effort. No, that's a lie. It took a lot of effort to actually make this, because I will show. So that's exactly like where I am at right now with this game. Now let's hide this. So if you have seen the previous video about the part 3, if you have seen that one or another one in the beginning, I've shown this before, but let's try to quickly go over it, because the biggest change is actually, listen, this is a big change. I will show it in a second. I had different objects, like I have a pressure plate, the switch, the items, and at some point NPCs. I might talk about NPCs here as well if I make it on time. But they're just, we got the slidey blocks and the switches. We got different items. And what actually was happening in the beginning is that I would load in the JSON file, and based on that, I would create the objects, and every object had a different function. But most of the functions were kind of similar, apologies, except for maybe, okay, this object is actually a solid, or this object requires this, or there were just small changes. And I was thinking, I need to make a function for everything and find out like how that actually works. So let's go over it. I increased the text size a little bit. Like let's just increase it one more. Is that gonna make a big difference? Yeah, maybe. So the objects are loaded in over here, and that's either from a save file or just the original file. So every time if we pick up an item and we leave the screen, all the object data is saved in a JSON file and then loaded back in when we go back to that screen. But if it's the first time we're visiting that screen, we're actually pulling the data from just a JSON file, not from a save file, so to say. So once we load it in that file, we are gonna initialize the objects. And what that actually entails, am I actually using this? No, I don't think I am. I don't know why that is even there. But I do have like the different types of objects, and this might actually change later on as well. It might not even be needed, but before, for every object that is here, it would call a function. For example, this is for the entrance. It would call like create entrance object or create pressure plate object, and so on and so on. And as you can see, it is simply calling one function, and that's create object. And what it's sending along is the path to that object data, because in that path, like in a JSON file, every info that is required or necessary for that file or for that object is stored in there. The object path is super important with how everything is set up. And I got this idea actually from Godot, where you work in nodes and every node has a path as well. And I was thinking, that's actually useful. That I don't know if this is like okay to do. It works, and I think it's okay. I do send along the class of the object, which is not really required anymore. And I also have like the object number, which is also maybe not that required anymore. Maybe, a tiny bit. How it is set up, it is still required. So once we go to the create object, there's some stuff happening here. We are setting the path to the object data. This is something that doesn't really have to be done, but it's still there. I'm not a fan of setting a path to the object path because I had some funky side effects of doing so. Not going to go into detail, but it works. And the funny thing is, so, okay, the object path, for example, the object path, I'm looking here on the right, it says object entrance 0. So that's an object path. That is the path to this object, because everything that's here is important for the object. That's all the data that we need. So we're setting some like the tel y and x and y. That is just simply where it gets spawned. And as you can see here, and again, this is not really something that I think is not in Construct 3, but you know, it's something that I've learned by programming and learning programming. I'm not a programmer, but by working in Godot, just a class, and I created my own set and getters. So here, the tel x, I could, you know, based on the path, actually say like, okay, what I want is the spawn and then the tel, this tel over here. I could do that directly from here, but what is happening is that I'm calling a function. The function is called get object spawn tel x, and I'm just sending along the object path. And what is happening is that if I scroll all the way down, oh yeah. If I go here to the object set and get, we, you know, I got a few, and some people might go like, oh my God, what are you doing? Hey, it works, and the objects are super important in this game. So I think this is justifiable. So what I'm doing here is that based on the object path, we set the path to that object path. And what we do is actually check if the tel needs to be reset, because I'm actually storing the last position of those objects. And for an entrance is not going to move, but the slidey block is going to move. So this was just for testing. It's okay. It works. So if it's going to reset, I'm just gonna return the value that is this value over here. And if it doesn't reset, I am gonna return either a value that has been created, current tel x, that is not here, but that is a key that will be made if an object actually moved. And if it doesn't has that key, it is actually gonna return back to the spawn dot tel x value. And I do have like many object getters and setters. So I got the get object class. I am just simply able to send along the object path, and the class is returned. And the class is actually something that is also not in the original JSON file. That's stuff that's actually being created while creating the object. So there's some data in a JSON file being made while the object is being created. So I don't have to type in that much, because I want to make sure that this remains readable. So I could all type it in here right now, but there's no need. I could just make it, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's actually happening with all of these things. Like I'm just calling a function to get the data. There's another side effect, a beneficial side effect of doing it like this, because right now the JSON file looks like that. But what if I change that structure a little bit, and I do need to call or get the class or the type or the ID or the position in different functions as well. So what happens if I change that JSON file, the structure, and maybe place the data in it somewhere else, and that whole path actually changes? Because of the function, I only have to change this right here in one central location, instead of changing it in that defense sheet, and then find out like, okay, maybe this calls, or this actually has like a wrong path or anything. So it's the set and get. Normally that works with a class, but I'm kind of approaching the interactable object as a class, like how you would do in like Unity or Godot, and using that system like here. It just seemed like a good way to do. And I wish I had known this before, that I could actually do that with JSON files, because that would have worked out or helped me a lot with Horizon Danger, with the other game that I'm working on. And it works. If there are any downsides, or like, no, this is not good at all, please do tell me. I know there's a lot of functions here. I normally don't like that. But that's game development. I need the functions. And either I need to set the data, or I need to get the data. And again, the interactable objects, so many objects are interactable even right now in this prototype. I think it's already like a lot. I think it's justifiable to have that amount of functions, because yeah, I do think like an NPC is gonna be considered as an object as well that you can interact with. Don't call the NPC objects, but they are objects. Don't say it too loud. So yeah, there's just one function, create an object, and that actually takes care of everything. It even checks if the object has to be spawned, yes or no. Maybe at some point, like, an object doesn't have to be spawned, so it could be disabled, or it actually goes from disabled to enabled because an object now spawns because you did something, you defeated the boss, and now this object is actually allowed to spawn somewhere else. I spoke about like quest lines, like, okay, do this, and I think this is something that's gonna help out and make that easier, between quotes, easier, not easy, but easier. So it's still difficult, but it's easier. Difficult, easier, and not easy. Nothing is easy, man. So yeah, what I do here, this is actually, yeah, no, this is still required. Like, the normally at the interact object, I would have like variables for, okay, this is actually this class, this type, and this. Because I'm working with the object path, the only thing the interactable object needs to know, what is my path and where do I have to look for my data. It seems like, yes, like, okay, that actually works, because I was kind of getting tired of getting like creating a family and then having all the variables and have to fill it in and have like the same data at two positions. So the family, the interact object, only gets like the path to that object, and because of the set and getters, like, I'm able to retrieve the data. It's very nice, and it works. Um, so yeah, this is where I do put in some extra data. At the moment, it's not like in an object category over here, and that's something that I was talking about before. I might actually do that just for the sake of it, because now it's just like, okay, now it's just here or down there or something. It's not it's not clean. It needs to be tidy. So after that, we are gonna check like if the object is hidden or locked. That's based on the trigger events, and also a simple one. But this is gonna turn into a function as well. It's just if the object is solid, yes or no. Like the sliding block and the switch are solid, and some objects are not solid, and that is stored in there. And can I actually show that? I think that is in here. That's actually the 30 minutes. I'm just gonna focus on the object manager, nothing else. It's gonna be okay. So here it says like, okay, the pressure plate normal is solid is false, but the slide normal is actually true. So I do have, this is the class, this is the type of object. So I'm able to create different type of slides with different settings, but this is just where it actually pulls the data. And if it's interactable by a player, enemy, an object, and there might be a new one that's actually like, okay, is it like location based, or does it care about location based items that are movable? Maybe I don't know if it's the pressure plate, it works. So not needed right now. So this has remained the same. Like if it's a trigger, yes or no, we add the trigger and also add the interactable object. And again, I'm just sending along the object path of that object, because that's the only thing that I need to know in the interaction manager to actually pull the data of that object. And that's basically it. Let's just quickly show that in the interact manager, like how that is set up. I am not sure if that is interesting though. So for example, I add the interact object. That's just this one here. We got the object path and it's here. But for the interaction object, I need quite a lot of data, like the X and Y position, the class, the type, the number, the ID, and the UID of the sprite. And also if you need something to interact with it. And no, there's another path here. So normally I would call that function with all the data, like with the parameters. And this way I'm just sending along only the object path, because that's the only thing that I need to know. Because right here I'm just filling out, okay, I need to tell X. I'm gonna call this function to get the tell X. I'm calling a function to get the tell Y, calling a function to get the class, the type, but all solely based on the object path. And I love it. It actually works. And I got the idea suddenly from Godot, because the nodes, everything is a node and everything has like a path to it. And I was sometimes you reference to a node with the actual path. Like, okay, I need this one here. And I was thinking, yes, that's actually something that I could apply to the JSON files. The path has the answers. So here the object is simply added, and this is no longer needed. Let's delete it. That was there to, okay, do I put it in like the player, the enemy, or like an object category? The interact. So how it is set right up right now, and I'm not going to go into detail about that and show it. But there's a JSON file every time when we go on the screen. If it's like the first time that we visit it, or like the second time, a JSON file is, created with keys, and those keys are based on the X and Y positions of all the objects that are interactable. So when we walk around, there's something that's actually looking like, okay, what's actually the tile in front of us? And, it's going to compare that X and Y position in a JSON file. Like, do you have that key? Do we have the key 44? Because we're looking at tile 44. Yes, you do have that key. Okay, here are the objects that you can interact with because I'm a player. So it's going to check the object settings. For example, this one right here. If I am standing in front of the entrance, it's going to check, is this interactable by player? Yes. So it's that is how I'm grading that array with the object path in it. Like, yeah, here's an object, you can interact with it. There you go. And, based on that interaction, something happens and a function is called based on the object. Every object does have its own function, and that is okay. Quickly gonna show it. So there's a switch, the slide, the pressure plate, the item, and the entrance. I think that's gonna remain there because some items need different kind of interactions, different results when I press the interact button. Like, what's it gonna look like? I don't know yet, but this is the way to go, and I'm okay with it. In this instance, like, okay, let's be real. Like, how many interactable objects are there? I don't know, but it's definitely not like over 40. Isn't maybe, or it could be. I actually don't know, but it's gonna be a low number, and I do need like a separate function for each object. Because again, not every object acts the same way or needs to call the same type of functions. So the interaction, this was just a quick overview, but the interactions actually have changed a lot, and I do think it is easier to add new objects right now, but there are no objects that I actually want to make or add, because I do think it is time to move on from the interactions. Like the last 3 videos, I actually have talked about it. And actually today was the day that I finished it up. Like, I need to clean it up. But I think for now, I'm saying, yes, this is okay. It's time to move on because I do want to build. No, that's a complete lie. I'm going to talk about the interaction object. A new one that I want to add. You idiot. But there's a but. I'm leaning towards 2 things. This is kind of like a weird position to be in with this prototype. The interactions are working. I don't care about the combat right now. I don't care about the enemies. I do care about what are the other systems that I need to build. And I have talked about the NPC. So let's dive in the NPC. I actually wrote down some notes so I wouldn't forget. The NPC is gonna be an interactable object. You can walk up to an NPC and start a conversation, or actually maybe it is a shop and you can buy a thing. I still don't know how to tackle this, but I'm leaning towards the complex way. I could make it so that an item is interactable or that there's a item that you have to pay for. Uh, okay. Listen, there's a way to maybe make an item that's interactable with an interaction requirement that is a money value, and you can only interact with it and pick it up if you have the money. And if you don't, you can't pick it up. That's a simple way to do it. Just imagine like the first Zelda, you got 3 items to choose from, and that's it. And the NPC is there, and there's just dialogue. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Something like that. I messed it up. I messed up the quote. I'm a big Zelda fan. Messed up the quote. I don't even know what the dude actually says in the beginning. Don't care. I care, but also don't care. So that's a way to go. But I don't think that that's what I want to do. What I want to do is make it more complex. That's my issue. Always want to make it more complex. But I was thinking, okay, if an NPC is interactable, I want the ability to either, for example, to either talk to the NPC and pull up like dialogue and show that on the screen, like dialogue. Maybe you do have like different options, like, okay, can you talk about this, or can you talk about this, or can you talk about this? So by making it more complex, to make an NPC, I actually have to build like different systems. Something for the dialogue, like menu, like changing up menu, selecting items, or selecting items in the menu, not items, not like a potion or a sword, but just option 1, talk, shop, exit. Like do that. So that actually means I have to look into the controls again. I do have set it up that I can that I'm able to switch up the controls and adjust them like on the fly. That's how the inventory is actually working, walking around. But yeah, introducing the NPC. Yes, I do need to build an NPC, but there's just so many systems that are actually required to make that work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build an NPC, pull some dialogue. But dialogue means that I need to store dialogue somewhere and load it in. And then the question is like, okay, which line and which type of dialogue are we at right now? Because maybe the NPC has different dialogue after a certain event, and I need to think about that. I don't have an idea. I haven't given it any thought at the moment on how to approach that. I need to start building it, and then actually, then my mind actually goes like, okay, you need to think about this and this and this and this. So the thing is though, an NPC is probably there mostly for a shop, or there could be a shop. That does mean that there needs to be a different menu or something that you can navigate, like that shows like, okay, money, the item, and we need to pull the data, like, okay, this shopkeeper has these type of items. So long story short, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make the NPC and to make that complete, and that's gonna be a hurdle. So I will start with a simpler version though, but just creating an NPC that has like the functionality to interact with it and to start a conversation. Yes, that's tricky, because yeah, again, you have to start a conversation, load in the dialogue. What dialogue needs to be loaded in? Where is the dialogue stored? Do you trigger different dialogue based on certain events? And I don't think I am. Maybe I'm able to use the trigger system right now, but I have a feeling I do have to make a different version for that. Load in the items, how to buy items, and I do think like the inventory system needs an overhaul. I don't think like how the setup when and with the game that I have in mind that the current inventory is usable at all. What I want to do is maybe have like an equip screen, like okay, here's the equip icon for a sword, and if I press on that, you get a list of items that you can actually store over there, like your left hand or right hand, or do you have like a helmet or armor set? Yes, that's already like way more complicated than the Zelda game, but I have some ideas. Um, so yeah, the two bigger things right now, and I'm not sure which one I'm gonna focus on first, is the NPC and the inventory, and based on that, also the menu, like the menu navigation in the game itself. Um, because maybe at some point, like picking up an item actually pulls up a menu where you can see the item and you can say like, okay, take this with me, or I'll leave it on the ground. Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. But those are, I think the two things or three things that are, or the things that I've just said are maybe on the top of the list, like the biggest the biggest priority. Yeah, so that's where the project is right now. Really happy with the interactions and that it's actually working so far, and that I'm storing like the object data, and that I can actually move around the screen, that the items are gone if I have picked them up, that the multiple interactions are actually working for the staircase, you know, to make it appear yes or no. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Did it take more time? Yeah, yeah, it did. It did. And that's the way it is. So again, if you're watching this today, and today is the 30th April of 2024, or if you're watching this video in this week, um, there's gonna be a live stream next Friday. That's the 3rd of May at 6:30 p.m. CEST. I'll post a link to my Twitch channel down below in the description. And what else? Oh yeah, if you're not able to check out the live stream, that's fine. I will make a highlight video with some highlights of that stream. I hope everything goes well. That's it. Thanks all for watching again. I appreciate it, and maybe see you next time. Yeah. Bye. I was gonna say have a good weekend, but it's Tuesday. Cool. See you later.